Book 1 of Trivia, or the Art of Walking the Streets of London, by John Gay. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Advertisement. The world, I believe, will take so little notice of me that I need not take much of it. The critics may see by this poem that I walk on foot, which probably may save me from their envy. I should be sorry to raise that passion in men whom I am so much obliged to, since they allowed me an honour hitherto only shown to better writers, that of denying me to be the author of my own works. I am sensible this must be done in pure generosity, because whoever writ them, provided they did not themselves, they are still in the same condition. Gentlemen, if there be anything in this poem good enough to displease you, and if it be any advantage to you to ascribe it to some person of greater merit, I shall acquaint you for your comfort, that among many other obligations, I owe several hints of it to Dr. Swift. And if you will so far continue your favour as to write against it, I beg you to oblige me in accepting the following motto: Non tu in triviis indocte solebas didenti miserum stipula disperdere carmen. Book 1 of the Implements for Walking the Streets, and Signs of the Weather. Through winter streets to steer your course aright, how to walk clean by day and safe by night, how jostling crowds with prudence to decline, when to assert the wall and when resign. I sing, thou Trivia, goddess aid my song, through spacious streets conduct thy bard along. By thee transported I securely stray where winding alleys lead the doubtful way, the silent court and opening square explore, and long perplexing lanes untrod before. To pave thy realm and smooth the broken ways, earth from her womb a flinty tribute pays. For thee the sturdy pavior thumps the ground, whilst every stroke his labouring lungs resound. For thee the scavenger bids kennels glide within their bounds, and heaps of dirt subside. My youthful bosom burns with thirst of fame, from the great theme to build a glorious name, to tread in paths to ancient bards unknown, and bind my temples with a civic crown. But more, my country's love demands the lays, my country's be the profit, mine the praise. When the black youth at chosen stands rejoice, and clean your shoes resounds from every voice. When late their miry sides stage coaches show, and their stiff horses through the town move slow. When all the mall in leafy ruin lies, and damsels first renew their oyster cries, then let the prudent walker shoes provide, not of the Spanish or Morocco hide. The wooden heel may raise the dancer's bound, and with the scallop top his step be crowned. Let firm well-hammer'd soles protect thy feet through freezing snows and rains and soaking sleet. Should the big last extend the shoe too wide, each stone will wrench the unwary step aside. The sudden turn may stretch the swelling vein, thy cracking joint unhinge or ankle sprain. And when too short the modish shoes are worn, you'll judge the seasons by your shooting corn. Nor should it prove thy less important care to choose a proper coat for winter's wear. Now in thy trunk thy doily habit fold, the silken drugget ill can fence the cold. The freeze's spongy nap is soaked with rain, and showers soon drench the camlet's cockled grain. True Whitney broadcloth with its shag unshorn, unpierced is in the lasting tempest worn. Be this the horseman's fence, for who would wear amid the town the spoils of Russia's bear? Within the Roquelaur's clasp thy hands are pent, hands that stretched forth invading harms prevent. Let the loop'd Bavaroy the fop embrace, or his deep cloak be spatter'd o'er with lace. That garment best the winter's rage defends, whose shapeless form in ample plaits depends. by various Names in various Counties known, yet held in all the true Sawtooth alone. Be thine of Kersey firm, though small the Cost, then brave unwet the Rain, unchill'd the Frost. If the strong Cane support thy walking Hand, Chairman no longer shall the Wall command, Even sturdy Carmen shall thy Nod obey, And rattling Coaches stop to make thee way. This shall direct thy cautious Tread aright, Though not one glaring Lamp enliven Night. Let Beaux their Canes with Amber tipt produce, Be theirs for empty Show, but thine for Use. In gilded Chariots while they loll at ease, And lazily insure a Life's Disease; While softer Chairs the tawdry Load convey To Court, to Whites, Assemblies, or the Play. Rosy complexion'd Health thy Steps attends, And Exercise thy lasting Youth defends. Imprudent Men Heaven's choicest Gifts profane, Thus some beneath their Arm support the Cane. The dirty Point oft checks the careless Pace, And miry Spots thy clean Cravat disgrace. Oh, may I never such Misfortune meet, May no such vicious Walkers crowd the Street. May Providence o'ershade me with her Wings, While the bold Muse Experience Dangers sings. Not that I wander from my native Home, And tempting Perils foreign Cities roam. Let Paris be the Theme of Gallia's Muse, Where Slavery treads the Streets in wooden Shoes. Nor do I rove in Belgia's frozen Clime, And teach the clumsy Boor to skate in Rime; Where, if the warmer Clouds in Rain descend, No miry Ways industrious Steps offend. The rushing Flood from sloping Pavements pours, And blackens the Canals with dirty Showers. Let others Naples' smoother Streets rehearse, And with proud Roman Structures grace their Verse; Where frequent Murders wake the Night with Groans, And Blood in purple Torrents dyes the Stones. Nor shall the Muse through narrow Venice stray, Where Gondolas their painted Oars display. O happy Streets to rumbling Wheels unknown, No Carts, no Coaches shake the floating Town. Thus was of old Britannia's City blest, Ere the Pride and Luxury her Sons possess'd. Coaches and Chariots yet unfashion'd lay, Nor late invented Chairs perplex'd the Way. Then the proud Lady tripp'd along the Town, And tuck'd up Petticoats secur'd her Gown. Her rosy Cheek with distant Visits glow'd, And Exercise unartful Charms bestow'd. But since in braided Gold her Foot is bound, And a long trailing Manteau sweeps the Ground, Her Shoe disdains the Street. The lazy Fair With narrow Step affects a limping Air. Now gaudy Pride corrupts the lavish Age, And the Streets flame with glaring Equipage. The tricking Gamester insolently rides, With Loves and Graces on his Chariot sides. In saucy State the griping Broker sits, And laughs at Honesty and trudging Wits. For you, O honest Men, these useful Lays the Muse prepares, I seek no other Praise. When Sleep is first disturb'd by Morning Cries, From sure Prognosticks learn to know the Skies, Lest you of Rheums and Coughs at Night complain, Surpris'd in dreary Fogs, or driving Rain, When suffocating Mists obscure the Morn. Let thy worst Wig, long us'd to Storms, be worn; This knows the powder'd Footman, and with Care Beneath his flapping Hat secures his Hair. Be thou for every Season justly drest, Nor brave the piercing Frost with open Breast; And when the bursting Clouds a Deluge pour, Let thy Surtout defend the drenching Shower. The changing Weather certain Signs reveal; Ere Winter sheds her Snow, or Frosts congeal, You'll see the Coals in brighter Flame aspire, And Sulphur tinge with blue the rising Fire. Your tender Shins the scorching Heat decline, And at the Dearth of Coals the Poor repine. Before her Kitchen Hearth the nodding Dame, In Flannel Mantle wrapt, enjoys the Flame; Hov'ring upon her feeble Knees she bends, And all around the grateful Warmth ascends. Nor do less certain Signs the Town advise Of milder Weather and serener Skies. The ladies gaily dress'd, them all adorn With various dyes, and paint the sunny morn. The wanton Fawns with frisking Pleasure range, And chirping Sparrows greet the welcome Change. Not that their Minds with greater Skill are fraught, Endued by Instinct, or by Reason taught. The Seasons operate on every Breast, 'Tis hence that Fawns are brisk, and Ladies drest. When on his Box the nodding Coachman snores, And dreams of fancy'd Fairs; when Tavern Doors The Chairmen idly crowd, then ne'er refuse To trust thy busy Steps in thinner Shoes. But when the swinging Signs your Ears offend With creaking Noise, then rainy Floods impend. Soon shall the Kennels swell with rapid Streams, And rush in muddy Torrents to the Thames. The Bookseller, whose Shop's an open Square, Foresees the Tempest, and with early Care Of Learning strips the Rails. The Rowing Crew to tempt a Fair, Clothe all their Tilts in blue. On hosiers Poles depending, Stockings tied, Flag with the slacken'd Gale from side to side. Church Monuments foretell the changing Air. Then Niobe dissolves into a Tear, And sweats with secret Grief. You'll hear the Sounds of whistling Winds, Ere Kennels break their Bounds. Ungrateful Odours common Shores diffuse, And dropping Vaults distil unwholesome Dews. Ere the Tiles rattle with the smoking Shower, And Spouts on heedless Men their Torrents pour. All Superstition from thy Breast repel, Let credulous Boys and prattling Nurses tell, How if the Festival of Paul be clear, Plenty from liberal Horn shall strow the Year. When the dark Skies dissolve in Snows or Rain, The lab'ring Hind shall yoke the Steer in vain. But if the threat'ning Winds in Tempests roar, Then War shall bathe her wasteful Sword in Gore. How if on Swithin's Feast the Welkin low'rs, And every Penthouse streams with hasty Show'rs, Twice 20 Days shall Clouds their Fleeces drain, And wash the Pavements with incessant Rain. Let not such vulgar Tales debase thy Mind, Nor Paul nor Swithin rule the Clouds and Wind. If you the Precepts of the Muse despise, And slight the faithful Warnings of the Skies, Others you'll see, when all the Town's afloat, Wrapt i' the Embraces of a Kersey Coat, Or double button'd Frieze. Their guarded Feet defy the muddy Dangers of the Street, While you, with Hat unloop'd, the Fury dread Of Spouts high streaming, and with cautious Tread Shun every dashing Pool, or idly stop To seek the kind Protection of a Shop. But Business summons. Now with hasty Scud You jostle for the Wall, the spatter'd Mud Hides all thy Hose behind. In vain you scour, thy Wig alas, uncurl'd admits the Shower. So fierce Alecto's snaky Tresses fell, When Orpheus charm'd the rigorous Powers of Hell. Or thus hung Glaucus's Beard with briny Dew, Clotted and strait, when first his amorous View Surpris'd the bathing Fair. The frighted Maid now stands a Rock, transform'd by Circe's Aid. Good Huswives, all the Winter's Rage despise, Defended by the Riding Hood's Disguise. Or underneath the Umbrella's oily Shed, Safe through the Wet, on clinking Pattens tread. Let Persian Dames the Umbrella's Ribs display, To guard their Beauties from the sunny Ray. Or sweating Slaves support the shady Load, When Eastern Monarchs show their State abroad. Britain in Winter only knows its Aid, To guard from chilly Show'rs the walking Maid. But oh! forget not, Muse, the Pattens praise, That Female Implement shall grace thy Lays. Say from what Art divine th' Invention came, And from its Origin deduce the Name. Where Lincoln wide extends her fenny Soil, A goodly Yeoman liv'd grown white with Toil. One only Daughter bless'd his nuptial Bed, Who from her Infant Hand the Poultry fed. Martha, her careful Mother's Name, she bore, But now her careful Mother was no more. Whilst on her Father's Knee the Damsel play'd, Patty he fondly call'd the smiling Maid. As Years increas'd her ruddy Beauty grew, And Patty's Fame o'er all the Village flew. Soon as the blushing Morning warms the Skies, And in the doubtful Day the Woodcock flies, Her cleanly Pail the pretty Huswife bears, And singing to the distant Field repairs. And when the Plains with Evening Dews are spread, The milky Burthen smokes upon her Head. Deep through a miry Lane she pick'd her way, Above her Ankle rose the chalky Clay. Vulcan by chance the bloomy Maiden spies, With Innocence and Beauty in her Eyes. He saw, he lov'd, for yet he ne'er had known Sweet Innocence and Beauty meet in one. Ah, Mulciber, recall thy nuptial Vows, Think on the Graces of thy Paphian Spouse, Think how her Eyes dart in exhausted Charms, And canst thou leave her Bed for Patty's Arms? The Lemnian Pow'r forsakes the Realms above, His Bosom glowing with terrestrial Love. Far in the Lane a lonely Hut he found, No Tenants ventur'd on th' unwholesome Ground. Here smokes his Forge, he bares his sinewy Arm, And early strokes the sounding Anvil warm. Around his Shop the steely Sparkles flew, As for the Steed he shap'd the bending Shoe. When blue-ey'd Patty near his Window came, His Anvil rests, his Forge forgets to flame. To hear his soothing Tales she feigns delays, What Woman can resist the Force of Praise? At first she coyly every Kiss withstood, And all her Cheek was flush'd with modest Blood. With headless Nails he now surrounds her Shoes, To save her Steps from Rains and piercing Dews. She lik'd his soothing Tales, his Presence wore, And granted Kisses, but would grant no more. Yet Winter chill'd her Feet, with Cold she pines, And on her Cheek the fading Rose declines. No more her humid Eyes their Lustre boast, And in hoarse Sounds her melting Voice is lost. This Vulcan saw, and in his heavenly Thought A new Machine mechanick Fancy wrought. Above the Mire her shelter'd Steps to raise, And bear her safely through the wintry Ways. Straight the new Engine on his Anvil glows, And the pale Virgin on the Patten rose. No more her Lungs are shook with dropping Rheums, And on her Cheek reviving Beauty blooms. The God obtain'd his Suit, though Flatt'ry fail, Presence with Female Virtue must prevail. The Patten now supports each frugal Dame, Which from the blue-ey'd Patty takes the Name. Book 1. Book 2 of Trivia, or the Art of Walking the Streets of London, by John Gay. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Of Walking the Streets by Day. Thus far the Muse has traced in useful Lays The proper Implements for wintry Ways; Has taught the Walker with judicious Eyes To read the various Warnings of the Skies. Now venture Muse from Home to range the Town, And for the public Safety risk thy own. For Ease and for Dispatch the Morning's best, No tides of Passengers the Street molest. You'll see a draggled Damsel here and there From Billingsgate her fishy Traffic bear. On Doors the sallow Milkmaid chalks her Gains, Ah, how unlike the Milkmaid of the Plains! Before proud Gates attending Asses bray, Or arrogate with solemn Pace the Way. These grave Physicians with their milky Cheer, The love sick Maid and dwindling Beau repair. Here Rows of Drummers stand in martial File, And with their vellum Thunder shake the Pile, To greet the new made Bride. Are sounds like these the proper Prelude to a State of Peace? Now Industry awakes her busy Sons, Full charg'd with News the breathless Hawker runs. Shops open, Coaches roll, Carts shake the Ground, And all the Streets with passing Cries resound. If cloth'd in black you tread the busy Town, Or if distinguish'd by the reverend Gown, 3 Trades avoid. Oft in the mingling Press, The Barber's Apron soils the sable Dress. Shun the Perfumer's touch with cautious Eye, Nor let the Baker's Step advance too nigh. Ye Walkers too, that youthful Colours wear, 3 sullying Trades avoid with equal Care. The little Chimney sweeper skulks along, And marks with sooty Stains the heedless Throng. When small Coal murmurs in the hoarser Throat, From smutty Dangers guard thy threaten'd Coat. The Dustman's Cart offends thy Clothes and Eyes, When through the Street a Cloud of Ashes flies. But whether black or lighter Dyes are worn, The Chandler's Basket on his Shoulder borne, With tallow spots thy Coat. Resign the way, To shun the surly Butcher's greasy Tray, Butchers whose Hands are dyed with Blood's foul Stain, And always foremost in the Hangman's Train. Let due Civilities be strictly paid, The Wall surrender to the hooded Maid, Nor let thy sturdy Elbow's hasty Rage Jostle the feeble Steps of trembling Age. And when the Porter bends beneath his Load, And pants for Breath, clear thou the crowded Road, But above all, the groping Blind direct, And from the pressing Throng the Lame protect. You'll sometimes meet a Fop of nicest Tread, Whose mantling Peruke veils his empty Head. At every Step he dreads the Wall to lose, And risks, to save a Coach, his red heel'd Shoes. Him, like the Miller, pass with caution by, Lest from his Shoulder Clouds of Powder fly. But when the Bully, with assuming Pace, Cocks his broad Hat, edg'd round with tarnish'd Lace, Yield not the way, defy his strutting Pride, And thrust him to the muddy Kennel's side. He never turns again, nor dares oppose, But mutters coward Curses as he goes. If drawn by Business to a Street unknown, Let the sworn Porter point thee through the Town. Be sure observe the Signs, for Signs remain Like faithful Landmarks to the walking Train. Seek not from 'Prentices to learn the Way, Those fabling Boys will turn thy Steps astray. Ask the grave Tradesman to direct thee right, He ne'er deceives, but when he profits by't. Where fam'd Saint Giles' ancient limits spread, An in-rail'd Column rears its lofty Head, Here to 7 Streets, 7 Dials count the Day, And from each other catch the circling Ray. Here oft the Peasant, with enquiring Face Bewilder'd, trudges on from Place to Place. He dwells on every Sign with stupid Gaze, Enters the narrow Alley's doubtful Maze, Tries every winding Court and Street in vain, And doubles o'er his weary Steps again. Thus hardy Theseus, with intrepid Feet, Travers'd the dangerous Labyrinth of Crete. But still the wandering Passes forc'd his Stay, Till Ariadne's Clue unwinds the Way. But do not thou, like that bold Chief, confide Thy vent'rous Footsteps to a Female Guide. She'll lead thee with delusive Smiles along, Dive in thy Fob, and drop thee in the Throng. When waggish Boys the stunted Besom ply, To rid the slabby Pavements, pass not by Ere thou hast held their Hands. Some heedless Flirt will overspread thy Calves with spattering Dirt. Where Porters' Hogsheads roll from Carts aslope, Or Brewers down steep Cellars stretch the Rope, Where counted Billets are by Carmen toast, Stay thy rash Steps, and walk without the Post. Where elevated o'er the gaping Crowd, Clasp'd in the Board the perjur'd Head is bow'd, Betimes retreat. Here thick as Hailstones pour Turnips, and half hatch'd Eggs, a mingled Shower, Among the Rabble rain. Some random Throw May with the trickling Yolk thy Cheek o'erflow. Though Expedition bids, yet never stray Where no ranged Posts defend the rugged Way. Here laden Carts with thundering Waggons meet, Wheels clash with Wheels, and bar the narrow Street. The lashing Whip resounds, the Horses strain, And blood in anguish bursts the swelling Vein. O barbarous Men, your cruel Breasts assuage, Why vent ye on the gen'rous Steed your Rage? Does not his Service earn your daily Bread, Your Wives, your Children by his Labours fed? If, as the Samian taught, the Soul revives, And shifting Seats in other Bodies lives, Severe shall be the brutal Coachman's Change, Doom'd in a Hackney Horse the Town to range. Carmen transform'd, the groaning Load shall draw, whom other Tyrants with the Lash shall awe. Who would of Watling Street the Dangers share, when the broad Pavement of Cheapside is near? Or who that rugged Street would traverse o'er, that stretches, O Fleet Ditch, from thy black Shore to the Towers moated Walls? Here Steams ascend, that in mix'd Fumes the wrinkled Nose offend, where Chandler's Cauldrons boil, where fishy Prey hide the wet Stall, long absent from the Sea, and where the Cleaver chops the Heifer's Spoil, and where huge Hogsheads sweat with trainy Oil, thy breathing Nostril hold. But how shall I pass, where in Piles Cornavian Cheeses lie? Cheese, that the Table's closing Rites denies, And bids me with th' unwilling Chaplain rise. O bear me to the Paths of fair Pell Mell, Safe are thy Pavements, grateful is thy Smell. At distance rolls along the gilded Coach, Nor sturdy Carmen on thy Walks encroach. No Lets would bar thy Ways, but Chairs denied The soft Supports of Laziness and Pride. Shops breathe Perfumes, through Sashes Ribbons glow, The mutual Arms of Ladies and the Beau. Yet still even here, when Rains the Passage hide, Oft the loose Stone spurts up a muddy Tide Beneath thy careless Foot, and from on high, Where Masons mount the Ladder, Fragments fly. Mortar and crumbled Lime in Showers descend, And o'er thy Head destructive Tiles impend. But sometimes let me leave the noisy Roads, And silent wander in the close Abodes, Where Wheels ne'er shake the Ground. There pensive stray in studious Thought the long uncrowded Way. Here I remark each Walker's diff'rent Face, And in their Look their various Business trace. The Broker here his spacious Beaver wears, Upon his Brow sit Jealousies and Cares. Bent on some Mortgage to avoid Reproach, He seeks by Streets, and saves th' expensive Coach. Soft, at low Doors, old Lechers tap their Cane, For fair Recluse that travels Drury Lane. Here roams uncomb'd the lavish Rake, to shun His Fleet Street Draper's everlasting Dun. Careful Observers, studious of the Town, Shun the Misfortunes that disgrace the Clown. Untempted, they contemn the Juggler's Feats, Pass by the Muse, nor try the Thimble's Cheats. When Drays bound high, they never cross behind, Where bubbling Yeast is blown by Gusts of Wind. And when up Ludgate Hill huge Carts move slow, Far from the straining Steeds securely go, Whose dashing Hoofs behind them fling the Mire, And mark with muddy Blots the gazing 'Squire. The Parthian thus his Jav'lin backward throws, And as he flies, infests pursuing Foes. The thoughtless Wit shall frequent Forfeits pay, Who 'gainst the Sentry's Box discharge their Tea. Do thou some Court or secret Corner seek, Nor flush with Shame the passing Virgin's Cheek. Yet let me not descend to trivial Song, Not vulgar Circumstance my Verse prolong. Why should I teach the Maid, when Torrents pour, Her Head to shelter from the sudden Shower? Nature will best her ready Hand inform, With her spread Petticoat to fence the Storm. Does not each Walker know the warning Sign, When Wisps of Straw depend upon the Twine? Cross the close Street, that then the Paviour's Art Renews the Ways, denied to Coach and Cart. Who knows not, that the Coachman lashing by, Oft with his Flourish cuts the heedless Eye? And when he takes his Stand to wait a Fare, His Horse's Foreheads shun the Winter's Air. Nor will I roam when Summer's sultry Rays Parch the dry Ground, and spread with Dust the Ways. With whirling Gusts the rapid Atoms rise, Smoke o'er the Pavement, and involve the Skies. Winter my Theme confines, whose nitry Wind Shall crust the slabby Mire, and Kennels bind. She bids the Snow descend in flaky Sheets, And in her hoary Mantle clothe the Streets. Let not the Virgin tread these slippery Roads, The gathering Fleece the hollow Patten loads. But if thy Footsteps slide with clotted Frost, strike off the breaking balls against the Post, on silent Wheel the passing Coaches roll, oft look behind and ward the threat'ning Pole. In harden'd Orbs the Schoolboy moulds the Snow, to mark the Coachman with a dext'rous Throw. Why do ye, Boys, the Kennel's Surface spread, to tempt with faithless Pass the Matron's Tread? How can ye laugh to see the Damsel's Spurn sink in your Frauds, and her green Stocking mourn? At White's the harness'd Chairman idly stands, and swings around his Waist his tingling Hands. The Sempstress speeds to change with red tipp'd Nose. The Belgian Stove beneath her Footstool glows, in half whipp'd muslin Needles useless lie, and Shuttlecocks across the Counter fly. These Sports warm harmless, why then will ye prove, Deluded Maids, the dangerous Flame of Love? Where Covent Garden's famous Temple stands, That boasts the Work of Joan's immortal Hands, Columns with plain Magnificence appear, And graceful Porches lead around the Square. Here oft my Course I bend, when lo, from far I spy the Furies of the Football War. The Prentice quits his Shop to join the Crew, Increasing Crowds the flying Game pursue. Thus as you roll the Ball o'er snowy Ground, The gathering Globe augments with every Round. But whither shall I run? The Throng draws nigh, The Ball now skims the Street, now soars on high. The dext'rous Glazier strong returns the Bound, And gingling Sashes on the Penthouse sound. O roving Muse, recall that wondrous Year, When Winter reign'd in bleak Britannia's Air; When hoary Thames, with frosted Osiers crown'd, Was 3 long Moons in icy Fetters bound. The Waterman, forlorn along the Shore, Pensive reclines upon his useless Oar; Sees harness'd Steeds desert the stony Town, And wander Roads unstable, not their own. Wheels o'er the harden'd Waters smoothly glide, And raise with whiten'd Tracks the slipp'ry Tide. Here the fat Cook piles high the blazing Fire, And scarce the Spit can turn the Steer entire. Booths sudden hide the Thames, long Streets appear, And numerous Games proclaim the crowded Fair. So when a General bids the martial Train Spread their Encampment o'er the spacious Plain, Thick rising Tents a Canvass City build, And the loud Dice resound through all the Field. 'Twas here the Matron found a doleful Fate, In Elegiac Lay the Woe relate. Soft as the breath of distant Flutes, at Hours When silent Evening closes up the Flowers, Lulling, as falling Waters hollow Noise, Indulging Grief, like Philomella's Voice. Doll every Day had walk'd these treacherous Roads, Her Neck grew warp'd beneath autumnal Loads Of various Fruit; she now a Basket bore, That Head, alas! shall Basket bear no more. Each Booth she frequent past, in quest of Gain, And Boys with Pleasure heard her shrilling Strain. Ah, Doll, all Mortals must resign their Breath, And Industry itself submit to Death. The cracking Crystal yields, she sinks, she dies, Her Head chopp'd off from her lost Shoulders flies. Pippin she cried, but Death her Voice confounds, And Pip, 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 along the Ice resounds. So when the Thracian Furies Orpheus tore, And left his bleeding Trunk deform'd with Gore, His sever'd Head floats down the silver Tide. His yet warm Tongue for his lost Consort cried, Eurydice! With quivering Voice he mourn'd, And Heber's Banks Eurydice return'd. But now the Western Gale the Flood unbinds, And blackening Clouds roll on with warmer Winds. The wooden Town its frail Foundation leaves, And Thames full Urn rolls down his plenteous Waves. From every Penthouse streams the fleeting Snow, And with dissolving Frost the Pavements flow. Experienc'd Men, inur'd to City ways, Need not the Calendar to count their Days, When through the Town, with slow and solemn Air, Led by the Nostril, walks the muzzled Bear. Behind him moves majestically dull The Pride of Hockley Hole, the surly Bull. Learn hence the Periods of the Week to name, Mondays and Thursdays are the Days of Game. When fishy Stalls with double Store are laid, The golden bellied Carp, the broad finn'd Maid, Red speckled Trouts, the Salmon's silver Jewel, The jointed Lobster, and unscaly Sole, And luscious Scallops to allure the tastes Of rigid Zealots to delicious Fasts. Wednesdays and Fridays you'll observe from hence, Days when our Sires were doom'd to Abstinence. When dirty Waters from Balconies drop, And dexterous Damsels twirl the sprinkling Mop, And cleanse the spatter'd Sash, and scrub the Stairs, No Saturday's conclusive Morn appears. Successive Cries the Season's change declare, And mark the monthly Progress of the Year. Hark how the Streets with treble Voices ring, To sell the bounteous Product of the Spring. Sweet smelling Flowers and Elders early bud, With Nettles tender Shoots to cleanse the Blood. And when June's Thunder cools the sultry Skies, Even Sundays are profaned by Mackerel Cries. Walnuts the Fruiterer's Hand in Autumn stain, Blue Plums and juicy Pears augment his Gain. Next Oranges the longing Boys entice, To trust their Copper Fortunes to the Dice. When Rosemary and Bays the Poet's Crown, Are bawl'd in frequent Cries through all the Town, Then judge the Festival of Christmas near, Christmas the joyous Period of the Year. Now with bright Holly all your Temples strow, With Laurel green and sacred Mistletoe. Now Heaven born Charity thy Blessings shed, Bid meager Want uprear her sickly Head, Bid shivering Limbs be warm, let Plenty's Bowl In humble Roofs make glad the needy Soul. See, see, the Heaven born Maid her Blessings shed, Lo, meager Want uprears her sickly Head. Cloth'd are the Naked, and the Needy glad, While selfish Avarice alone is sad. Proud Coaches pass regardless of the Moan Of Infant Orphans, and the Widow's Groan, While Charity still moves the Walker's Mind, His liberal Purse relieves the Lame and Blind. Judiciously thy Halfpence are bestow'd, Where the laborious Beggar sweeps the Road. Whate'er you give, give ever at Demand, Nor let Old Age long stretch his palsied Hand. Those who give late are importun'd each Day, And still are teas'd because they still delay. If e'er the Miser durst his Farthings spare, He thinly spreads them through the public Square, Where, all beside the Rail, ranged Beggars lie, And from each other catch the doleful Cry. With Heaven for Twopence cheaply wipes his Score, Lifts up his Eyes, and hastes to beggar more. Where the brass Knocker wrapt in Flannel Band, Forbids the Thunder of the Footman's Hand, Th' Upholder rueful Harbinger of Death, Waits with Impatience for the dying Breath, As Vultures o'er a Camp with hovering Flight, Snuff up the future Carnage of the Fight. Here canst thou pass, unmindful of a Prayer, That Heaven in Mercy may thy Brother spare. Come, sincere, experienced Friend, Thy Briefs, thy Deeds, and even thy Fees suspend. Come, let us leave the Temple's silent Walls, Me Business to my distant Lodging calls. Through the long Strand together let us stray, With thee conversing, I forget the way. Behold that narrow Street which steep descends, Whose building to the slimy Shore extends. Here Arundel's fam'd Structure rear'd its Frame, The Street alone retains an empty Name, Where Titian's glowing Paint the Canvas warm'd, And Raphael's fair Design with Judgment charm'd. Now hangs the Bellman's Song, and pasted here The colour'd Prints of Overton appear. Where Statues breath'd, the Work of Phidias' Hands, A wooden Pump or lonely Watch house stands. There Essex' stately Pile adorn'd the Shore, There Cecil's, Bedford's, Villas, now no more. Yet Burlington's fair Palace still remains, Beauty within, without Proportion reigns. Beneath his eye declining art revives, The wall with animated picture lives. There Handel strikes the strings, The melting strain transports the soul, And thrills through every vein. There oft I enter, but with cleaner shoes, For Burlington's belov'd by every Muse. O ye associate walkers, O my friends, Upon your state what happiness attends? What, though no Coach to frequent visit rolls, Nor for your shilling Chairmen sling their Poles, Yet still your Nerves rheumatic Pains defy, Nor lazy Jaundice dulls your saffron Eye, No wasting Cough discharges Sounds of Death, Nor wheezing Asthma heaves in vain for Breath, Nor from your restless Couch is heard the Groan Of burning Gout, or sedentary Stone. Let others in the jolting Coach confide, Or in the leaky Boat the Thames divide, Or, box'd within the Chair, contemn the Street, And trust their Safety to another's Feet. Still let me walk, for oft the sudden Gale Ruffles the Tide, and shifts the dangerous Sail. Then shall the Passenger, too late, deplore The whelming Billow, and the faithless Oar. The drunken Chairman in the Kennel spurns, The Glasses shatters, and his Charge o'erturns. Who can recount the Coach's various Harms, The Legs disjointed, and the broken Arms? I've seen a Beau, in some ill-fated Hour, When o'er the Stones chok'd Kennels swell the Shower, In gilded Chariot loll. He with disdain Views spatter'd Passengers, all drench'd in Rain, With Mud fill'd high, the rumbling Cart draws near. Now rule thy prancing Steeds, lace Charioteer. The Dustman lashes on with spiteful Rage, His pond'rous Spokes thy painted Wheel engage. Crush'd is thy Pride, down falls the shrieking Bow, The slabby Pavement crystal Fragments strow. Black Floods of Mire th' embroider'd Coat disgrace, And Mud enwraps the Honours of his Face. So when dread Jove, the Son of Phoebus, hurl'd Scarr'd with dark Thunder to the Nether World, The headstrong Coursers tore the silver Reins, And the Sun's beamy Ruin gilds the Plains. If the pale Walker pants with weak'ning Ills, His sickly Hand is stor'd with friendly Bills. From hence he learns the 7th born Doctor's Fame, From hence he learns the cheapest Taylor's Name. Shall the large Mutton smoke upon your Boards? Such Newgate's copious Market best affords. Wouldst thou with mighty Beef augment thy Meal? Seek Leadenhall, St. James sends thee Veal, Thames Street gives Cheeses, Covent Garden Fruits, Moorfields old Books, and Monmouth Street old Suits. Hence mayst thou well supply the Wants of Life, Support thy Family, and clothe thy Wife. Volumes on shelter'd Stalls, expanded lie, And various Science lures the learned Eye. The bending Shelves with ponderous Scholiasts grown, And deep Divines to modern Shops unknown. Here, like the Bee, that on industrious Wing Collects the various Odours of the Spring, Walkers at leisure Learning's Flowers may spoil, Nor watch the wasting of the midnight Oil, May Morals snatch from Plutarch's tatter'd Page, A mildew'd Bacon, or Stagyra's Sage. Here sauntering Prentices o'er Otway weep, Or Congreve smile, or over Dee sleep. Pleas'd Sempstresses the Lock's fam'd Rape unfold, And Squirts read Garth till Apozems grow cold. O Lintot, let my Labours obvious lie Ranged on thy Stall for every curious Eye, So shall the Poor these Precepts gratis know, And to my Verse their future Safeties owe. What Walker shall his mean Ambition fix On the false Lustre of a Coach and Six? Let the vain Virgin, lur'd by glaring Show, Sigh for the Liv'ries of the embroider'd Beau. See yon bright Chariot on its Harness swing, With Flanders Mares, and on an arched Spring. That Wretch, to gain an Equipage and Place, Betray'd his Sister to a lewd Embrace. This Coach, that with the blazon'd Scutcheon glows, Vain of his unknown Race, the Coxcomb shows. Here the brib'd Lawyer, sunk in Velvet sleeps, The starving Orphan, as he passes, weeps. There flames a Fool, begirt with tinsell'd Slaves, Who wastes the Wealth of a whole Race of Knaves. That other, with a clustering Train behind, Owes his new Honours to a sordid Mind. This next in Court Fidelity excels, The publick rifles, and his Country sells. May the proud Chariot never be my Fate, If purchas'd at so mean, so dear a Rate. O rather give me sweet Content on Foot, Wrapt in my Virtue, and a good Surtout. Book 2. Book 3 of Trivia, or the Art of Walking the Streets of London, by John Gay. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Of Walking the Streets by Night. O Trivia, Goddess, leave these low abodes, And traverse o'er the wide ethereal roads. Celestial Queen, put on thy Robes of Light. Now Cynthia nam'd, fair Regent of the Night, At sight of thee, the Villain sheathes his Sword, Nor scales the Wall to steal the wealthy Hoard. Oh, may thy silver Lamp in Heaven's high Bower Direct my Footsteps in the Midnight Hour. When Night first bids the twinkling Stars appear, Or with her cloudy Vest enwraps the Air, Then swarms the busy Street. With caution tread, Where the Shop windows falling threat thy Head. Now Labourers home return, and join their Strength To bear the tottering Plank, or Ladder's Length. Still fix thy Eyes intent upon the Throng, And as the Passes open, wind along. Where the fair Columns of St. Clement stand, Whose straiten'd bounds encroach upon the Strand. Where the low Penthouse bows the Walker's Head, And the rough Pavement wounds the yielding Tread. Where not a Post protects the narrow Space, And strung in Twines, Combs dangle in thy Face. Summon at once thy Courage, rouse thy Care, Stand firm, look back, be resolute, beware. Forth issuing from steep Lanes, the Collier's Steeds Drag the black Load. Another Cart succeeds, Team follows Team, Crowds heap'd on Crowds appear, And wait impatient till the Road grow clear. Now all the Pavement sounds with trampling Feet, And the mix'd Hurry barricades the Street. Entangled here, the Waggon's lengthen'd Team Crack the tough Harness. Here a ponderous Beam Lies overturn'd athwart, for slaughter fed. Here lowing Bullocks raise their horned Head. Now Oaths grow loud, with Coaches jar, And the smart Blow provokes the sturdy War. From the high Box they whirl the Throng around, And with the twining Lash their Shins resound. Their Rage ferments, more dangerous Wounds they try, And the Blood gushes down their painful Eye. And now on Foot the frowning Warriors light, And with their ponderous Fists renew the Fight. Blow answers Blow, their Cheeks are smear'd with Blood, Till down they fall, and grappling roll in Mud. So when two Boars in wildy Teen bred, Or on Westphalia's fattening Chestnuts fed, Gnash their sharp Tusks, and rous'd with equal Fire, Dispute the Reign of some luxurious Mire. In the black Flood they wallow o'er and o'er, Till their arm'd Jaws distil with Foam and Gore. Where the Mob gathers, swiftly shoot along, Nor idly mingle in the noisy Throng. Lured by the silver Hilt, amid the Swarm, The subtle Artist will thy side disarm. Nor is thy flaxen Wig with safety worn, High on the shoulder, in the Basket borne, Lurks the sly Boy, whose hand to Rapine bred, Plucks off the curling Honours of the Head. Here dives the skulking Thief, with practis'd sleight, And unfelt Fingers make thy Pocket light. Where's now thy Watch, with all its Trinkets flown, And thy late Snuff box is no more thy own. But lo! his bolder Thefts some Tradesman spies, Swift from his Prey the scudding Lurcher flies, Dextrous he scapes the Coach with nimble bounds, While every honest tongue, Stop Thief, resounds. So speeds the wily Fox, alarm'd by Fear, who lately filch'd the Turkey's callow care. Hounds following hounds, grow louder as he flies, And injur'd tenants join the Hunter's Cries. Breathless he stumbling falls, ill-fated Boy, Why did not honest Work thy Youth employ? Seiz'd by rough Hands, he's dragg'd amid the Rout, And stretch'd beneath the Pump's incessant Spout, Or plung'd in miry Ponds, he gasping lies, Mud chokes his Mouth, and plasters o'er his Eyes. Let not the Ballad Singer's shrilling Strain Amid the Swarm thy list'ning Ear detain. Guard well thy Pocket, for these Sirens stand To aid the Labours of the diving Hand. Confederate in the Cheat, they draw the Throng, And Cambrick Handkerchiefs reward the Song. But soon as Coach or Cart drives rattling on, The Rabble part, in shoals they backward run. So Jove's loud Bolts the mingled War divide, And Crease and Troy retreats on either side. If the rude Throng pour on with furious Pace, And hap to break thee from a Friend's Embrace, Stop short, nor struggle through the Crowd in vain, But watch with careful Eye the passing Train. Yet I, perhaps too fond, if chance the Tide Tumultuous bears my Partner from my side, Impatient venture back; despising Harm, I force my Passage where the thickest swarm. Thus his lost Bride the Trojan sought in vain Through Night, and Arms, and Flames, and Hills of Slain. Thus Nisus wander'd o'er the pathless Grove, To find the brave Companion of his Love. The pathless Grove in vain he wanders o'er, Euryalus, alas, is now no more. That Walker, who regardless of his Pace, Turns oft to pour upon the Damsel's Face, From side to side by thrusting Elbows toast, Shall strike his asking Breast against the Post; Or Water, dash'd from fishy Stalls, shall stain His hapless Coat with spurts of scaly Rain. But if unwarily he chance to stray Where twirling Turnstiles intercept the Way, The thwarting Passenger shall force them round, And beat the Wretch, half breathless, to the Ground. Let constant Vigilance thy Footsteps guide, And wary Circumspection guard thy Side. Then shalt thou walk unharm'd the dang'rous Night, Nor need the vicious Link boy's smoky Light. Thou never wilt attempt to cross the Road, Where Alehouse Benches rest the Porter's Load, Grievous to heedless Shins. No Barrow's Wheel, That bruises oft the truant School boy's Heel, Behind thee rolling with insidious Pace, Shall mark thy Stocking with a miry Trace. Let not thy venturous Steps approach too nigh, Where gaping wide, low steepy Cellars lie. Should thy Shoe wrench aside, down, down you fall, And overturn the scolding Huckster's Stall. The scolding Huckster shall not o'er thee moan, But Pence exact for Nuts and Pears o'erthrown. Though you through cleanlier Alleys wind by Day, To shun the Hurries of the publick Way, Yet ne'er to those dark Paths by Night retire, Mind only Safety, and contemn the Mire. Then no impervious Courts thy haste detain, Nor sneering Alewives bid thee turn again. Where Lincoln's Inn wide Space is rail'd around, Cross not with vent'rous Step; there oft is found The lurking Thief, who while the Daylight shone, Made the Walls echo with his begging Tone. That Crutch which late Compassion mov'd, Shall wound thy bleeding Head, and fell thee to the Ground. Though thou art tempted by the Linkman's Call, Yet trust him not along the lonely Wall. In the Midway he'll quench the flaming Brand, And share the Booty with the pilfering Band. Still keep the publick Streets, where oily Rays Shot from the Crystal Lamp o'erspread the Ways. Happy Augusta, Law defended Town! Here no dark Lanthorn shade the Villain's Frown, No Spanish Jealousies thy Lanes infest, Nor Roman Vengeance stabs th' unwary Breast. Here Tyranny ne'er lifts her purple Hand, But Liberty and Justice guard the Land. No Bravos here profess the bloody Trade, Nor is the Church the Murderer's Refuge made. Let not the Chairman with assuming Stride Press near the Wall, and rudely thrust thy Side. The Laws have set him Bounds, his servile Feet Should ne'er encroach where Posts defend the Street. Yet who the Footman's Arrogance can quell? whose flambeau gilds the Sashes of Pell Mell, when in long Rank a Train of Torches flame, to light the midnight Visits of the Dame. Others perhaps by happier Guidance led, may, where the Chairman rests, with Safety tread. Whene'er I pass, their Poles unseen below, make my Knee tremble with the jarring Blow. If Wheels bar up the Road, where Streets are cross'd, with gentle Words the Coachman's Ear accost. He ne'er the Threat, or harsh Command obeys, but with Contempt the spatter'd Shoe surveys. Now man with utmost Fortitude thy Soul to cross the Way where Carts and Coaches roll. Yet do not in thy hardy Skill confide, nor rashly risk the Kennel's spacious Stride. Stay till afar the distant Wheel you hear, like dying Thunder in the breaking Air. Thy Foot will slide upon the miry Stone, and passing Coaches crush thy tortured Bone, or Wheels enclose the Road. On either hand, pent round with Perils, in the midst you stand, and call for Aid in vain. The Coachman swears, and Carman drive, unmindful of thy Pray'rs. Where wilt thou turn? Ah! whither wilt thou fly? On every side the pressing Spokes are nigh. So Sailors, while Charybdis' Gulfs they shun, amaz'd on Scylla's craggy Dangers run. Be sure, observe where brown Austria stands, Who boasts her Shelly ware from Wallfleet Sands. There mayst thou pass with safe unmiry Feet, Where the rais'd Pavement leads athwart the Street. If where Fleet Ditch with muddy Current flows, You chance to roam, where Oyster Tubs in Rows Are rang'd beside the Posts, there stay thy Haste, And with the sav'ry Fish indulge thy Taste. The Damsel's Knife the gaping Shell commands, While the salt Liquor streams between her Hands. The Man had sure a Pallet, cover'd o'er with Brass or Steel, That on the rocky Shore first broke the oozy Oyster's pearly Coat, And risk'd the living Morsel down his Throat. What will not Luxury taste? Earth, Sea, and Air Are daily ransack'd for the Bill of Fare. Blood stuff'd in Skins is British Christians' Food, And France robs Marshes of the croaking Brood. Spongy Morels in strong Ragousts are found, And in the Soup the slimy Snail is drown'd. When from high Spouts the dashing Torrents fall, Ever be watchful to maintain the Wall; For shouldst thou quit thy Ground, the rushing Throng Will with impetuous Fury drive along, All press to gain those Honours thou hast lost, And rudely shove thee far without the Post. Then to retrieve the Shed you strive in vain, Draggled all o'er, and soak'd in Floods of Rain. Yet rather bear the Shower and Toils of Mud, Than in the doubtful Quarrel risk thy Blood. O think on Oedipus' detested State, And by his Woes he warn'd to shun thy Fate. Where 3 Roads join'd he met his Sire unknown, Unhappy Sire, but more unhappy Son. Each claim'd the Way, their Swords the Strife decide, The hoary Monarch fell, he groan'd and died. Hence sprung the fatal Plague that thinn'd thy Reign, Thy cursed Incest, and thy Children slain. Hence wert thou doom'd in endless Night to stray Through Theban Streets, and cheerless grope thy Way. Contemplate, Mortal, on thy fleeting Years. See, with black Train the Funeral Pomp appears, Whether some Heir attends in sable State, And mourns with outward Grief a Parent's Fate; Or the fair Virgin, nipt in Beauty's Bloom, A Crowd of Lovers follow her to the Tomb. Why is the Hearse with Scutcheons blazon'd round, And with the nodding Plume of Ostrich crown'd? No, the Dead know it not, nor profit gain, It only serves to prove the living vain. How short is Life, how frail is human Trust, Is all this Pomp for laying Dust to Dust. Where the nail'd Hoop defends the painted Stall, Brush not thy sweeping Skirt too near the Wall, Thy heedless Sleeve will drink the colour'd Oil, And spot indelible thy Pockets soil. Has not wise Nature strung the Legs and Feet With firmest Nerves, design'd to walk the Street? Has she not given us Hands to grope aright, Amidst the frequent Dangers of the Night? And think'st thou not the double Nostril meant To warn from oily Woes by previous Scent? Who can the various City Frauds recite, With all the petty Rapines of the Night? Who now the Guinea Dropper's Bait regards, Trick'd by the Sharper's Dice, or Juggler's Cards? Why should I warn thee ne'er to join the Fray, Where the sham Quarrel interrupts the Way? Lives there in these our Days so soft a Clown, Brav'd by the Bully's Oaths, or threat'ning Frown? I need not strict enjoyn the Pocket's Care, When from the crowded Play thou lead'st the Fair. Who has not here or Watch or Snuff Box lost, Or Handkerchiefs that India's Shuttle boast? Oh, may thy Virtue guard thee through the Roads Of Drury's mazy Courts, and dark Abodes, The Harlot's guileful Paths, who nightly stand Where Catherine Street descends into the Strand. Say, vagrant Muse, their Wiles and subtle Arts To lure the Stranger's unsuspecting Hearts; So shall our Youth on healthful Sinews tread, And City Cheeks grow warm with rural Red. 'Tis she who nightly strolls with sauntering Pace, No stubborn Stays her yielding Shape embrace. Beneath the Lamp her tawdry Ribbons glare, The new scour'd Manteau, and the slattern Air. High draggled Petticoats her Travels show, And hollow Cheeks with artful Blushes glow. With flattering Sounds she soothes the credulous Ear, My noble Captain, Charmer, Love, my dear. In Riding Hood, near Tavern Doors she plies, Or muffled Pinners hide her livid Eyes. With empty Bandbox she delights to range, And feigns a distant Errand from the Change. Nay, she will oft the Quaker's Hood profane, And trudge demure the Rounds of Drury Lane. She darts from Sarsnet, Ambush wily leers, Twitches thy Sleeve, or with familiar Airs, Her Fan will pat thy Cheek; these Snares disdain, Nor gaze behind thee when she turns again. I knew a Yeoman, who for thirst of Gain To the great City drove, from Devon's Plain, His numerous lowing Herd. His Herds he sold, And his deep Leathern Pocket bagg'd with Gold. Drawn by a fraudful Nymph, he gaz'd, he sigh'd, Unmindful of his Home, and distant Bride. She leads the willing Victim to his Doom, Through winding Alleys to her Cobweb Room. Thence through the Street he reels from Post to Post, Valiant with Wine, nor knows his Treasure lost. The vagrant Wretch th' assembled Watchmen spies, He waves his Hanger, and their Poles defies. Deep in the Round House pent, all Night he snores, And the next Morn in vain his Fate deplores. Ah, hapless Swain, unus'd to Pains and Ills, Canst thou forego Roast Beef for nauseous Pills? How wilt thou lift to Heav'n thy Eyes and Hands, When the long Scroll the Surgeon's Fees demands? Or else (ye Gods avert that worst Disgrace) Thy ruin'd Nose falls level with thy Face; Then shall thy Wife thy loathsome Kiss disdain, And wholesome Neighbours from thy Mug refrain. Yet there are Watchmen, who with friendly Light Will teach thy reeling Steps to tread aright; For Sixpence will support thy helpless Arm, And home conduct thee, safe from nightly Harm. But if they shake their Lanthorns from afar, To call their Brethren to confed'rate War, When Rakes resist their Pow'r; If hapless you should chance to wander with the scouring Crew, Though Fortune yield thee captive, ne'er despair, But seek the Constable's considerate Ear; He will reverse the Watchman's harsh Decree, Mov'd by the Rhetorick of a Silver Fee. Thus would you gain some favourite Courtier's Word, Fee not the petty Clerk's, but bribe my Lord. Now is the time that Rakes their Revels keep, Kindlers of Riot, Enemies of Sleep; His scatter'd Pence the flying Nicker flings, And with the Copper Shower the Casement rings. Who has not heard the Scourer's midnight Fame? Who has not trembled at the Mohocks Name? Was there a Watchman took his hourly Rounds, Safe from their Blows, or new invented Wounds? I pass their desp'rate Deeds, and Mischiefs done, Where from Snow Hill black steepy Torrents run. How Matrons, hoop'd within the Hogshead's Womb, Were tumbled furious thence; the rolling Tomb O'er the Stones thunders, bounds from side to side, so Regulus to save his Country died. Where a dim Gleam the paly Lanthorn throws O'er the mid Pavement, heapy Rubbish grows, Or arch'd Vaults their gaping Jaws extend, Or the dark Caves to common Shores descend. Oft by the Winds extinct the Signal lies, Or smother'd in the glimmering Socket dies, Ere Night has half roll'd round her Ebon Throne. In the wide Gulf the shatter'd Coach o'erthrown Sinks with the snorting Steeds, the Reins are broke, And from the cracking Axle flies the Spoke. So when fam'd Eddiston's far shooting Ray, That led the Sailor through the stormy Way, Was from its rocky Roots by Billows torn, And the high Turret in the Whirlwind borne, Fleets bulg'd their Sides against the craggy Land, And pitchy Ruins blacken'd all the Strand. Who then through Night would hire the harness'd Steed, And who would choose the rattling Wheel for Speed? But hark! Distress with screaming Voice draws nigher, And wakes the slumbring Street with Cries of Fire. At first a glowing Red enwraps the Skies, And borne by Winds, the scattering Sparks arise. From Beam to Beam the fierce Contagion spreads, The spiry Flames now lift aloft their Heads. Through the burst Sash a blazing Deluge pours, And splitting Tiles descend in rattling Showers. Now with thick Crowds the enlighten'd Pavement swarms, The Fireman sweats beneath his crooked Arms, A leathern Casque his vent'rous Head defends, Boldly he climbs where thickest Smoke ascends. Mov'd by the Mother's streaming Eyes and Prayers, The helpless Infant through the Flame he bears, With no less Virtue, than through hostile Fire The Dardan Hero bore his aged Sire. See forceful Engines spout their level Streams, To quench the Blaze that runs along the Beams. The grappling Hook plucks Rafters from the Walls, And heaps on heaps the smoky Ruin falls. Blown by strong Winds, the fiery Tempest roars, Bears down new Walls, and pours along the Floors. The Heavens are all ablaze, the Face of Night Is cover'd with a sanguine dreadful Light. 'Twas such a Light involv'd thy Tow'rs, O Rome, The dire Presage of mighty Caesar's Doom, When the Sun veil'd in Rust his morning Head, And frightful Prodigies the Skies o'erspread. Hark! the Drum thunders, far ye Crowds retire, Behold the ready Match is tipp'd with Fire, The nitrous Store is laid, the smutty Train With running Blaze awakes the barrel'd Grain. Flames sudden wrap the Walls, with sullen Sound The shatter'd Pile sinks on the smoky Ground. So when the Year shall have revolv'd the Date, Th' inevitable Hour of Naples Fate, Her sapp'd Foundations shall with Thunders shake, And heave and toss upon the sulphurous Lake. Earth's Womb at once the fiery Flood shall rend, And in th' Abyss her plunging Tow'rs descend. Consider, Reader, what Fatigues I've known, The Toils, the Perils of the wintry Town, What Riots seen, what bustling Crowds I board, How oft I cross'd where Carts and Coaches roar'd. Yet shall I bless my Labours, if Mankind Their future Safety from my Dangers find. Thus the bold Traveller, inur'd to toil, Whose Steps have printed Asia's desert Soil, The barbarous Arabs haunt, or shiv'ring crost Dark Greenland Mountains of eternal Frost, Whom Providence, in length of Years, restores To the wish'd Harbour of his native Shores, Sets forth his Journals to the publick View, To caution by his Woes the wandering Crew. And now complete my gen'rous Labours lie, Finish'd, and ripe for Immortality. Death shall entomb in Dust this mouldering Frame, But never reach th' eternal Part, my Fame. When W and G, mighty Names, are dead, Or but at Chelsea under Custards read; When Criticks crazy Bandboxes repair, And Tragedies turn'd Rockets bounce in Air; High rais'd on Fleet Street Posts consign'd to Fame, This Work shall shine, and Walkers bless my Name. End of Book 3. End of Trivia, or the Art of Walking the Streets of London, by John Gay. Read by Phil Benson in Sydney, Australia.